So yeah, welcome. I'm Koen van Dragen. I'm the manager of the COLEAD Market Insights department, and I'm very happy to welcome you today in our webinar on key factors for launching a successful citrus business. Before we start, we will go through some general aspects for this webinar. While people are joining. So just know that your microphones will be muted during the webinar, but you are always welcome to introduce yourself in the chat. And if you have questions, you can write them in the Q&A box down below, or you can write them in the chat, and we will try to address them at the end of the presentation during the Q&A session. We will also compile all questions in a document and send it together with the recording of the webinar to all registrants within 1 week after the webinar. And so, as I said, yeah, the whole session will be recorded and shared afterwards. Also, the slides will be shared. And if you have any feedback, you're always welcome to share that with us as well, so we can keep improving for the next sessions. So for today, we will start with an introduction to COLEAD, for those who don't know COLEAD very well. And we will have also a small introduction to our Market Insights department. My colleague, Tiago Mendes da Silva, will do this, and then I will come back to you with our citrus sector study, which will be covering a small overview of the sector study. Then we will look at opportunities for fresh citrus. We will look at opportunities for citrus juice, and we will look at citrus oil and peels. And then, as I said, at the end, there should be a small Q&A session where we answer to your questions. So I will now give the floor to Tiago, who will introduce COLEAD and the COLEAD Market Insights department.
Thank you very much, Koen, and welcome everybody. Today I will present to you COLEAD and its Department of Market Insights. So without further ado, let's first talk about COLEAD, known as the Committee of Liaison for Entrepreneurship, Agriculture and Development. We are a private non-profit organization that has existed for already more than 50 years. We in the past were known as COLEAD, and our mission is known to implement activities through various programs to enhance agriculture's contribution to sustainable development goals. Now, our mission, which is known as Growing People, focuses mostly on developing individuals as they are key to agricultural progress. Our actions in this case, they aim to strengthen the skills of these individuals and organizations to improve their capabilities. How do we do so? Well, we try to enable farmer groups and others to sustainably access national and regional markets. Now, our work is guided by the implementation of our values, which include commitment, continuous improvement, diversity, performance, and humanity. We try to offer a network of businesses, professional organizations, and experts, which are all committed to inclusive and sustainable agriculture. This represents around 500 members. Now, COLEAD is a toolbox that designs, manages, and implements development programs. And we manage many programs which are mainly focused on technical assistance and information, which also includes FFM+. Now, who do we work with? Well, our primary targets are companies that market products in national and regional markets, but we also collaborate with businesses, service providers, training centers, research institutes, and public services, which are all represented by authorities. Now, COLEAD operates in more than 50 countries, mostly in the sub-Saharan Africa, but also in the Caribbean and the Pacific, mainly in the fresh fruit and vegetable sector. But recently, its activities have expanded to new countries and agri-food sectors, which now increases the number of target countries to up to 140. Now, of course, if you want to know more information, we always invite you to visit our website, which gives you more insight, but also leave your questions down below in the Q&A or on the chat. Now, moving on, let's now talk about the Resource Center on the next slide. So the COLEAD Resource Center is built on 25 years of experience and knowledge production, and initially the focus was mostly on food safety. Now, since then, it has expanded to include environmental management, food production, and even processing. This has now led to the development of cascading training methods, which links external experts to the internal resources of companies. Due to that, COLEAD has received ISO certifications for its training management system, which also demonstrates its commitment to development through education, learning, and research. This standard is suitable for training organizations of any size or method and aligns, of course, with the COLEAD's vision, which is, once again, growing people. Now, COLEAD shares its resources by publishing a training catalog covering around 8 themes. Some of them include environmental management, sustainable production, food safety, business development, plant health, social responsibility, and even more. All these resources, which have been developed over the years, are mostly freely accessible, with some, of course, available on request or reserved for COLEAD members and program beneficiaries. Now, talking a bit about the main available resources, well, some of them include the e-library, for example, which gives access to guides and publications from the Market Insights department, one of them being the citrus study we're going to present today. But also we have the e-learning platform, which is a training platform with modules on environmental management, labor laws, sustainable agriculture, and even more. We also provide statistics, which are interactive data on agricultural production and trade. Regulations, which are information via the AgriFo program, self-assessment tool to continuously improve businesses and their management, or news as well to update on events and programs. Again, if you want to know more about all these resources, feel free to check on our website. Now, moving on to the COLEAD's holistic approach, which is on the next slide. In this case, COLEAD takes this holistic approach to developing its programs, which is centered around 3 key pillars. So as you can see, the first one is facilitating market access, the second one, strengthening value chain, and the third one, leveraging impact. These pillars are carried out through its various departments of COLEAD, the first one being managed by Market Insights department. So under this first pillar, we provide essential resources such as market studies, market profiles, and statistical data. And the Market Insights department supports this with research into new generations of phytosanitary products, innovative production techniques, and ongoing regulatory monitoring to track changes in standards and regulations. In the second pillar, value chain strengthening, we focus more on building capacity through technical assistance. So this support is delivered both online and on the ground, and it also includes professional training, which means working directly with companies and their teams to strengthen their skills and operations. Now, finally, the third pillar, which is leveraging impact, emphasizes mostly on showcasing businesses' successes, and this is done mostly through webinars organized in collaboration with PAFO, ICA, and PIFON. But it also involves participation in research programs via the network's Analyse department and facilitating business growth through the Access to Finance department. Now, all in all these 3 pillars are supported by a set of digital tools and resources, which are all provided through a comprehensive toolbox and available not only to beneficiaries of COLEAD's programs, but also to stakeholders in both the public and private sectors, whether they are COLEAD's members or not. Now, finally, let's talk about the Market Insights department, as we can see on the next slide. So the Market Insights department currently consists of 5 people. And we collaborate with a network of independent experts as well as the expertise of our own members. We collect and cross-reference data, which we then store on the dedicated platform that allows the creation of interactive dashboards. And we also follow the latest developments in the agri-food sector and share information and analysis gathered from trade shows as well as social media platforms. Now, we produce publications and reports on various aspects of trade and supply chains, which we then present during webinars such as this one. And if you're interested, a list of upcoming webinars will be presented at the end of this presentation. Now, finally, we transform this data into actionable insights and support businesses' development by helping companies access new markets and facilitating meetings with new clients or suppliers. Now that I finished this presentation on COLEAD and its Market Insights department, I will give the word to Koen, which will now introduce you to the citrus sector study. Thank you very much.
All right, Tiago. Thank you for this intervention. So the citrus market study. In the next slide, we can see that this study covers three major themes, and they are separated in standalone chapters. So we have one chapter on fresh citrus, which includes oranges, lemon, grapefruit, easy peelers such as clementines, mandarins, satsumas, etc. Then we have a chapter on processed citrus, so mainly one chapter on juice, where the key juice is orange juice, but we also cover, for example, grapefruit juice, lemon juice. And then we have another chapter on another form of processed citrus, which is citrus oil and peel mainly. So in every chapter, we cover a number of topics. So we look at the market demand, such as market trends, customer demands. We look at the supply side, where we check the trends in supply, the seasonality, technology, value chain structure. Of course, then it's also important to look at the ingredients for success and the issues and opportunities and an economic analysis. So this is the typical structure of a chapter. Let's deep dive into the first chapter on fresh citrus. So fresh citrus as a group, it's very juicy, flavorful fruits. They are well known for their health benefits, high vitamin C content specifically. And in this study, as I said, we look mainly at oranges, lemons, grapefruit, easy peelers. We see a high demand globally for fresh fruit. And citrus is a very versatile commodity. It can be used in different products, fresh, but also processed into snacks. It can be eaten on the go. It can be used in salads. Lemons are popular in baking and beverage sectors. Grapefruit is a bit bigger and is used more as a breakfast fruit. So that's the fresh citrus gamma we covered. Looking at the trade globally over the past decade, we see that exports have been growing consistently, but not very fast. But still, the demand is very high. Europe is the largest importing region, and it has its own key producing countries such as Spain or Italy. But citrus being a seasonal fruit means that we have also a lot of imports, especially during the summer months. And it's the same for the other big importers globally, North America and Asia. Asia being the second biggest importer, even if it has also its own big producing countries such as China. But still, China also imports a lot of citrus, fresh citrus. If we look at Europe, on the next slide, we can see that the main importers are Germany, France, and the Netherlands, and they really import significant volumes. These three countries themselves represent around 28% of the global imports of fresh citrus. So that's huge. Netherlands is more of a re-exporter. It exports itself 90% of the citrus that it imports. While on the other hand, you have, for example, Germany, where only 20% is re-exported. So Netherlands is more of a hub country, while Germany and France are big consumers domestically. Then If we look at the global trends, we see that the citrus category is growing, and the main driver are the easy peelers, but we can look at each type individually. So if we look at oranges, we saw that during the COVID-19 pandemic, especially, there was a big increase in consumption of oranges because people cared a lot about their health, and the benefits of oranges were appreciated, the high vitamin C content, etc. But we also see that now, after the pandemic, the market has again stabilized, and the trend is stable. We see a stable demand, with major importing regions such as Europe and the US still showing high volumes of import of oranges. Lemon consumption has also remained stable. We see that the change in price has not so much of an effect on the demand. Buyers buy their lemon consistently as a habit in small quantities regularly. They are not so much looking at prices. But we see some trends in the culinary industry and the health-conscious consumers that they want to add more lemon to their diet. So there is a stable, moderate growth for lemon, and also we see some popularity for the seedless lemon varieties. And if you look at the growing section, that is really pushed by the easy peelers. They are very much liked because they are so convenient. They're very flavorful. This group includes mandarins, clementines, tangerines, as I said. They're used as snacks or in salads. It's a typical fruit to add to the lunchbox, and we see that this sector is growing quite a bit. And then there is grapefruit that is slightly declining, especially under the younger consumers. Maybe they don't really know well how to eat it. It's a bit bitter. It takes a bit of work to clean and to be ready to eat. So there we see a slight decline. Then what is driving these global consumption trends? We see four major driving trends. First of all, there is health and wellness. As I said, globally, wherever in Europe or in Africa, Asia, we see more attention for fresh fruit and vegetables. People really understand the benefits and the health aspects. And citrus has a lot of good qualities. For example, the high vitamin C content. It's sweet, but it's low in calories. It has high fiber content. And especially the easy peelers are also growing fast. And that's more linked to the second aspect also, the convenience. They're easy to carry, easy to clean and eat, and healthy. So they are well placed to combine the two different trends. And there we see also that part of this convenience is also the trend in pre-cut fruit, and citrus is also used in these ready-to-eat pre-cut fruit mixes. Seedless fruit is another thing linked to convenience. We see seedless lemons being promoted a lot and gaining popularity, but also seedless oranges and clementines are now entering the market. And the third trend is differentiation. Here we see things such as branding that helps to have new products entering the market. We see premium ranges of products. For example, in Germany, we have Susi oranges that were introduced by Ruhe to draw attention to their sweetness and flavor of these specific citrus fruits. Also in other brands, we see that they have a premium range where they assure that the fruit is very juicy and very sweet. We have mini fruits, so small sizes. We have very large sizes of oranges. So retailers and producers are playing with innovations in terms of size, but also innovations in terms of very tender fruits, or for example, pigmented varieties, such as different type of blood oranges. For example, there is onyx, which is a striped orange with a darker pigmentation. We have pink oranges and so on. So this is a bit of innovation and differentiation. And we also noticed that consumers don't pay that much attention to variety names, but they pay more attention to like the juiciness and the sweetness of the product, and that also the environmental consciousness is something that is very important everywhere. And that's another trend suppliers are using. For example, there is this trend of wonky fruits where not most perfectly formed fruits are still marketed because they have a very good taste, and instead of, you know, being wasted, they are marked on a specific brand. For example, Waitrose in the UK has a dedicated brand called Wall Good, which offers oddly sized fruit and vegetables, and wonky oranges are part of their range. There is also a lot of attention to packaging, and you know, moving away from plastics and using alternatives such as cellulose netting or compostable packaging. And this is very important for consumers, and it's also happening globally. If we look at the supply, we see that globally there is an overproduction if everything goes well. But as we all know, unfortunately, some countries or regions do face challenges at different times of the year or potentially over a period of years. So, for example, many countries face adverse weather conditions, droughts or floods, for example, caused by the El Nino phenomenon. Brazil recently had huge impact of adverse weather conditions on its production, and these unfavorable conditions also favor the development of diseases which are affecting fruit, such as citrus greening, black spot, false codling moth, and so on. So these diseases, they require specific controls, and also because big importers are often themselves producing regions, it also caused them to be very strict on phytosanitary regulations, and it also explains why these regulations are so stringent and so much reinforced. If we look at another aspect of the trade and marketing of fresh citrus, packaging, we see, for example, in Europe that there are very strict rules and regulations in place and being put in place with the new EU packaging and packaging waste directive, which really requires to have packaging being kept to a minimum, and that packaging needs to be designed to be reused, recycled, or environmentally friendly, that it can be composted. And for citrus growers, this means that they have to adopt sustainable packaging solutions using recyclable or compostable materials and reduce the use of plastics. Also, importers and retailers are responsible to ensure that the citrus products are packed in accordance with the EU regulations, which may include changes to the traditional packaging practices, such as switching to netting or wrapping in biodegradable alternatives instead of plastic. And when we visited the trade fairs, we saw, for example, a company, Giro, a Spanish company, and they are now offering netting made from 100% cellulose. So there are alternatives being developed, and they are available now on the market. So we are moving more and more in that direction. So to come to the opportunities and challenges, we see a growing demand for citrus, also in non-traditional importing countries. For example, there is regional trade opportunities in Africa, or in new markets such as Asia. But especially in Africa, we see now that the trade in citrus is still quite small, but it has increased significantly compared to the pre-COVID times. And we feel it's very important because if we look, for example, at the trade of apples and pears, which is a lot bigger than citrus, it shows us that there is a potential and an interest for consumers in fresh fruit. And especially the health benefits and the convenience and the flavor of citrus makes us believe that there is a lot of potential. Also, we know that there is far less stringent controls on imported fruit in African countries, and that consumers are much more open to different sizes and shapes. So we see quite a potential there. For example, oranges grown in Ghana, they are usually quite small and they have a bit of green color, and maybe they have some blemishes, but still they are bought, they are sold, they are eaten. So there are definitely opportunities. Globally, we see that the opportunity, there is an opportunity to differentiate and to have more like branded fruit, or to focus on more new varieties. Retailers can play with different sizes, give messages around natural or premium products, or provide natural packaging solutions. They can focus on the health benefits. And we know that organic is somewhat a niche, but still there is a global push for more environmental sustainable production by governments, such as in the EU with the EU Farm to Fork strategy that requires 25% of organic production by 2030. And also in North America, we see the same trend. So we think that there is quite an opportunity for organic citrus. We know also that consumers are very much interested in organic products, even if sometimes now monetary reasons prevent them from buying it, but still the opportunity is there. And yeah, the organic industry in general is a bit stagnating, but we still see that the demand is there, and we believe that if you can manage to bring an organic fruit to the market, you will certainly find a buyer for it. And that's also something we understood when we were talking to importers and exporters on the trade fairs. They said the price premium is not that big, but it will offer you an access to the market. So it's good to get access to the market, different way of accessing the market. Finally, the last opportunity, as I said, is the easy peelers. They are growing strong due to their convenience and their really nice flavor. And also the seedless varieties, such as seedless lemons and seedless easy peelers are very popular. Then talking about challenges. So yeah, there is a high administrative and financial burden to comply with all the regulatory requirements in key markets. So that's really something important, and we will come back to that. There are also overlapping seasons in the major exporting countries, which creates an oversupply at times, and that can result into dumping. There is a reduction in disposable incomes in some main markets, such as in the EU, due to the war in Ukraine and the increased energy prices. There's a bit of recession, so people have less money to spend on food. They're more careful. And there are the packaging requirements, that there is a global push for sustainable packaging. And in EU countries such as France, we are really moving to zero plastics. So that's an opportunity, but also a challenge. So finally, if we conclude and we look at the ingredients for success for fresh citrus, the first, we know that entering the market is very difficult, and there are a number of elements that you have to keep in mind to have guaranteed success. First of all, market access is key. We know that phytosanitary controls and registration of origin are very big barriers for many new producers. So you may not be used to such strict regulatory systems, and successfully exporting high quality products to Europe requires really a coordinated effort. You need support from government bodies, from regulatory agencies, and from trade associations. So they need all to work together. As a company alone, it's very likely that you will encounter so many obstacles. So you need support from a whole network of a whole environment within the country to support your exports to these high quality and big markets such as Europe. Secondly, also linked to that, you need systematic phytosanitary controls at every stage of the value chain. You need a system for data collection, labeling, and so on. So the producer needs a system in place from the outset to ensure that inspections are carried out consistently to guarantee the compliance with the destination market. Third ingredient, we think it's wise to go for a step-by-step investment strategy. So if a company wants to fully automate, say a warehouse, and then transfer it to export, this requires a really big investment. So therefore, it's better to consider a modular or a phased investment in automation. You could start, for example, with a conveyor belt, and then sort the fruit manually and screen it, and then progress into automizing parts of this process. And it's also important when you design your warehouse to have this growth in mind. So you can consider equipment suppliers that can provide you with additional automation components while your business grows step by step. Another important thing is to have good partnerships along the entire value chain. You have to have a really strong link between exporters, carrier, from buyer to retailer. It's important to have really open communication also when things are a bit more difficult. And it's good to, if we look at the destination market, to consider different alternative markets. So because when, as we said before, if everything goes well, there can be an oversupply of citrus on the main markets, and that can result in a price collapse. And there are also the ever-changing regulations in these destination markets. So it's always good to have a plan B, an alternative. So you can consider markets where regulations are a bit less restrictive, such as the local or regional markets, as we already mentioned. Those are good alternatives to have at hand. When starting to export, it can be a good idea to first, start at these lower risk markets. The risk associated with phytosanitary barriers suggests that newcomers should first try in smaller, less difficult markets to learn and develop the skills. And then when they are ready, they can deliver more reliable and larger quantities to the difficult markets. And by learning in the small markets, it's also give them the time to invest gradually and to learn the business. So lastly, we advise to have a very good consideration of the level of risk involved. Containers can be rejected for a variety of reasons. We have seen even with more advanced exporters from South Africa, for example, it still happens. So it's important to draw up a risk management plan to take into account these things, but also, for example, climate change or epidemics and so on. So you need to have clear strategies on how to manage the risk in such situations. So these were our advices for the fresh citrus. And that brings us to the next product category, the citrus juices. Juices, we see that globally, the biggest market is the European Union and UK, which consumed about 17.5 million liters of juice in 2022. Overall, we see that the juice market is a bit declining, mainly in value. And we can have a look at the global trends that influence the demand. The next slide. So we can have a look at what is driving these changes over the longer run. First important trend is that juice is not longer seen as like an everyday healthy product to consume. People are more aware of sometimes high sugar contents, and therefore people see it more as an indulgence. It's a treat to be enjoyed occasionally and maybe more at special occasions like a special breakfast or a brunch. And this change will have a long-term impact on the demand of juice and also on orange juice. Secondly, we see the price sensitivity has increased in markets such as Europe due to the war in Ukraine and the increase of cost of inputs and the increasing food prices in general. So people have less money to spend on indulgences, and the consequence is that consumers are now more sensitive to prices and changing price for juice as well. Third, we have the focus on health and wellness. So this has a positive and a negative impact on fruit juice. On one hand, there is an increasing demand for natural products. There is a good understanding that ingredients need to be pure, unadulterated, and good for you. So product claims have to be made in terms of wealth and wellness. But yeah, the sugar content is a bit, what I said, has a bit a negative impact. There is environmental sustainability, which is important, just as for the fresh. We see that consumers, retailers, and manufacturers, especially in well-established markets like the EU, are very aware of the impact of their consumption on the environment. And for example, for juice, they are aware that juice come from far, they require processing, and that the farming methods can have an impact on soil fertility and health, and that the packaging has a major impact on the use of resources and waste. So there is a growing attention by consumers and retailers and manufacturers of juice on environmental aspects. And lastly, there is the trend of hydration. So unfortunately, again, it doesn't spell a positive trend for juices, because globally we see that there is an increasing interest in the drinkability of juices, particularly water. So there is an innovation area going on where there is like added water or flavored teas that is growing in popularity at the expense of pure juices. So yeah, important to notice is that it's not just a geographically isolated phenomenon. We see the same trends touching back in markets such as Africa, the Middle East, and Asia. Consumers are aware of sugar contents in juices. They're cutting back on the sugar when they can. They're interested in the purity of juices like never before. And it's important for the companies if they want to access these markets to keep this in mind. Globally, about the market, we see that it's very competitive and very concentrated, the supply chain. So we have some mega citrus growers and mega citrus juice producers globally. They supply juice to the whole world. And a good example of that is Brazil, which focus almost entirely on citrus juices and has created a very organized and professional citrus juice sector, particularly orange juice. Mexico is also known for lime and orange production, and likewise it has a large and very efficient juice sector supplying to the USA. Argentina is more known for lemon juice production and has also a large and professional organized sector. And South Africa is focusing on grapefruit juice. So those are the big players globally. And over the last decade, we have seen an increasing vertical integration in the juice sector. So that means that growers, processors, logistic companies, marketing companies in Europe, they're all increasingly becoming one seamless organization. So large companies based in the EU might begin to own their own farms, their own processing units, their own logistic companies, as well as the full route to the market. And yeah, they are already well-known large food ingredient companies that have been long established, and they have good relationships with food manufacturers. So new suppliers will have to compete with these large sectors that are very much vertically integrated. And because of this vertical integration, the large companies have also very good efficiencies and competitiveness. That's a third aspect we observe. So these companies, they have a lot of professional staff that can focus on efficiencies and competitiveness. For example, in Brazil, they were the first to introduce tankers for shipping orange juice abroad. They are able to bypass bottling or packaging into cans or cartons because they just pipe orange juice directly on board of ships, and they are able to freeze the products and keep it frozen and ship it in this way to the US and then onwards to Europe. And in Europe, they have specialized ports where specialized infrastructures are installed for pumping the orange juice directly from these tankers into large specialized road tankers and trucks, which allow for a very competitive and speedy distribution at a relatively low cost, which allows them really to make use of economy of scale. But however, despite all these efficiencies, there are still some challenges in the sector. So as I said, in good years, just as for the fresh, there is a surplus production, but there are some crises as well in major growing countries due to the change of climate, hurricanes and drought. For example, we have seen in Brazil in most recent years, it was very much affected by the citrus greening and citrus black spots. So yeah, there are years that the supply is limited, and that yeah, buyers are really looking and open for new suppliers. So it's really two modalities: or there is a surplus and it's famine, or there is a lack of product and there is a feast for new suppliers. That's our conclusion. Then the three main opportunities we spot. So knowing that it's a very competitive market, we think that it's important to look for high value niches, and particularly niches that are not that are undersupplied. So to compete with the mass, it will be very difficult. So you really have to find some niches. And one of those niches is, for example, non from concentrate organic citrus juice, which is still in demand. And if you are even further, if you are looking for an ultra niche, you could focus, for example, on baby certified organic citrus juice. So that's really typically used for baby food and baby snacks to flavor it or as a coating. And it's for a vulnerable section of the population where parents are really, the children, where parents are willing to pay extra prices for safe and healthy products. And we know that these are very small niches, but they're untapped. So there are opportunities. Then there is the global interest in environmentally sustainable production and logistics that is very high. So from the International Fruit and Vegetable Juice Association survey of their juice bottlers, they found out that in the coming year, the focus on environmental sustainable packaging will be at an all-time high, and that sustainable practices to reduce waste, to preserve water, to reduce the use of materials that cannot be recycled are all sorts of claims that bottlers are interested in, and also they themselves begin to make these claims to their consumers. Focusing on the supply, we think that multi-product juice companies with citrus as one of their production lines are potentially better to guarantee throughput in some countries. So it's good to add other fruits to your production. For example, papaya and pineapple juicing can be combined with citrus with the same equipment, and that could allow you to compete against single citrus juice companies such as the Brazilian ones. and it would also be a way to offset your high investment costs. And we'll come back to that. So in terms of challenges, on the next slide, we see that there are three major challenges you will have to face. We already mentioned them before, but indeed, as I said, there are incredibly efficient competitors like Brazil, and they have incredible operations. They are very heavily integrated into the end markets. So that's the competition. There are the very high investment costs. So if you want to invest in citrus juice production, you have to think of an excess of $4 million for a good juice line, only rather than a bottling line. So with that high investment costs, it's very hard to support operation on one product line. That's why I said it's good to think of becoming a multi-juice producer. There is an increasing focus on quality, and in the past there were some issues around juice adulterations, and so suppliers are more and more interested in certification, and specialized certification, and also the more general like HACCPS, and they are more and more common in the juice sector. So to conclude, all these factors are important to consider, along with the key questions on how you will achieve economy of scale and maximum efficiency in the light of the factors that we mentioned above. Then we come to the last point for these juices, are ingredients for success. So our first advice is you should really be thinking of yourselves as a bottler or as a juicer, but not both, because bottling requires very specific skill sets, brand development, packaging, distribution, and if you want, you cannot like acquire all these skills and also be a juicer, which requires another set of skills. So we think it's better to choose, because a juicer, he will need to require on multi-fruit production, on sourcing, on food safety. So that's another set of issues. So it's better to be one or the other. Then there is the access to the markets. So we know that there are these big companies that are vertically integrated and they have easy access to market. So for a smaller, newer supplier, it's going to be very difficult, and it's going to be important to see how you can access the market. You could form alliances with other small ingredient companies, or you could offer, as I said, a high value niche product that a certain bottler or food manufacturer is looking for, such as the baby food manufacturers, and you can form like a direct relationship with them, for example. Then we already mentioned how important it is to considering your business model and also to base your business model around being a multi-fruit processor and not only focusing on citrus juice. We know that the technology being used for citrus juice production can be used for a large range of different tropical fruits, such as papaya and mango or pineapple, as I said before, and they can be bottled and juiced using the same equipment. Maybe you need some minor alterations to the sequence of production process, but it's very possible. Secondly, after this, or linked to this, also to this multi-fruit processing, it's important that you have sourcing excellence. So if you want to become a multi-fruit juicing company, you have to consider that you have to try to be operational for most of the year. So you need to be skilled to find a range of product, a range of fruits, and that you can source it from a wider area so that you have a consistent stream of good quality juice grade fruit for your juicing. And also operational excellence is important. You need to have, you need to be able to compete against those very efficient suppliers in South America. So you need to be sure, for example, that you are running your plant at least at 80% of the capacity, and that you have very limited waste. And what you can do, for example, is to convert as much as possible of your waste into other value-added products, as we will see in the next session. For example, aromas, oils, pectins, and so on. Finally, because of the very heavy investment and the equipment, and because of these multi-fruit aspects, multi-season operations, it's very important that you have a sound financial planning in place. That's really important, that your cash flow is managed well. Companies have to be able to withstand the period between orders being placed, raw material being sourced, shipments of the products. You know, we know that this is a key issue in many juice companies in Africa. They were not able to manage this cash flow, and in consequence they were not able to survive. So this has to be very well planned. Okay, so that was it for juice. Now we can move to the last chapter, which is citrus oils and peels. So citrus oils and peels are value-added products that are typically recovered during the juice production. Citrus oils can be pressed from the peel, which is rich in oils and fats. Then you have these oils that are really concentrated in colors and flavors and aromas, and they're very desirable to companies that manufacture, for example, food, but also beverages and cosmetic products, and even in household care products they are used. Besides that, under the skin of citrus fruits, there is also an inner layer, which is very rich in fibers and pectin. And the extraction of pectin is also well known from citrus. Pectin is widely used as a gelling agent in products such as jams and jellies. And the peel of citrus itself can also be dried and made into powder. And it can be used by various industries, such as the food industry, but also cosmetics, cleaning products again. Oils are used in aromatherapy, and byproducts are used in pharmaceuticals and supplements, food supplements. And EU is a big market for that. So if we look at the production process in the next slides, we can see that peels and oils can be processed in two different ways. So, or you take them directly from the fruit without going through the juice production of the fresh fruits. And here the oils or the peels and the pips are used directly from the fresh fruit. In the other way, it's possible to do it adjunct to the juice production. So the fruit juice is extracted, and then the oils are processed from the peels, and the peels itself can be used along with the pips and the pomace. Pomace is like a leftover white solid material that is left over after the juice has been pressed. So these are the two options. If we look at opportunities and challenges, we see that there is a growing market due to the interest in natural oils and organic, and there is also the trend of organic and the trend of waste production. So what's really important in this sector of natural oils is that consumers are actively seeking for products that have that are natural, you know. So the demand for citrus oils in different sectors of food, beverage, cosmetics, and it's especially pronounced in markets such as Europe and North America, where you have this type of clean labeled products. So it means that there is a limited number of ingredients, natural ingredients, no artificial components. They're easy to understand what is inside the product, and these clean label products are highly valued. Also organic, we spoke about it in the fresh citrus, but also here we know that it's a niche, but it's important, and especially for peels and oils processing, because pesticides on the peel directly influence the quality of the citrus oils. So if there are pesticides on the peels, they have to go through many rounds of processing, which drives up the costs and the time of production. So in general, organic is sought after to produce oils, and especially when these oils are used for wellness and health, such as aromatherapy, etc. Also, sustainability in the sourcing is a major trend, especially in Europe, where consumers are interested in the origin of their food and their products, and also in the conditions under which they are produced and the environmental impact the production has. So people are becoming more and more aware of the environmental and the social consequences of their purchases. There is a growing global concern on issues such as climate change. So yeah, all consumers everywhere are expecting a greater corporate social responsibility. Then challenges. On the next slide, yeah, sorry. So the challenges is that producers are facing, again, a highly competitive industry. There are the large fresh and juice suppliers, and these large suppliers also process peels and oils. So for example, in Brazil, USA, and Spain, they all do process the waste products, and they extract oil, or they process the peels. And so therefore, it's important to establish really key relationships with buyers and know that they are available to purchase your products when you bring them to the market. The next challenge is that the global trends often change. So especially when it comes to fragrances, where a lot of citrus is used, companies, cosmetic companies often go along with the trends at the moment. So right now, it's more the botanicals that are trending in this industry. And for citrus, it's not so much pronounced at the moment, the request. However, citrus is also used as a base fragrance for a lot of different cosmetic products. So not as the primary scent, but still as a base. And the prices of oils and peels are quite affected by the supply. So if you have an extraordinary year, I mean, when there is sufficient supply of fruits, you will see that also the volumes of oil that is produced will rise and the price will fall. But just as there are so many challenges in the production, you can see that when the production is low, the price of oils can increase a lot. Finally, we know that there is a low conversion ratio for oil, so it's only 0.3%, which translates into 3 kilograms of oil for 1 ton of fruit. Peels have a higher percentage, around 30%, but peel prices are also relatively low, and peel is used less in the industry compared to oil. It might also be necessary to process, you could consider to process further into pectin, but again, that requires different equipment and more resources and time. So this about opportunities and challenges. And then we come again to our conclusion, which are our ingredients for success. So let's look for peels and oils. One of the most important ingredients for success, we believe, is that you actually have peel and oil business, which is adjunct to your juice production. So it exposes companies to less risks and allows for more competitive production. Companies that are typically juice companies, rather than a single fruit company, it allows you to have more diversified portfolio, which is very helpful in managing risk. And it allows you to produce high value citrus oils or diversifying further into peels, peel powder, and so on. And that's really an effective way to use all of the fruit and to create high value products besides the juice production. And the next is to consider organic. So organic market represents a niche, but it's really a growing market. And the supply of organic citrus also remains limited. So most of the fruit in the market is conventional. And therefore, if you have an organic product, it's an attractive area for growth. A lot of consumers have a desire for organic produce. But most of the time, yeah, it's a matter of price if they can afford it. But still, we see that everybody is aware of the environmental and health benefits of purchasing organic products. The next ingredient for success is market access. This typically applies to African producers as it's really key. Several key strategies must be employed to ensure long-term market viability. And these include doing upfront feasibility studies. So really to understand the market, it's understanding whether it's feasible, knowing the farmers available, the areas where you can produce, the seasonal production, the costs, and so on. And then the next thing is to have a strong value proposition. This could be, for example, to provide high quality oils or high quality organic oils. It could also mean to have environmental and sustainable production credentials, certifications, and buyers are looking for these certifications which add value to the products, and especially European buyers seek them besides the regulations that are already in place by the European Union. It's also very important to have a strategic partner. So if you're entering the business, already having your buyers up front and building strong relations and to have good lines of communication, it's important to provide a high quality product and to keep an eye on the evolving quality requirements, because it's very important to understand them, to adhere to them, to keep access to the market. So yeah, this is it. We have also, this is also something important, to have a very efficient supply chain. Yeah, this is still an ingredient for success, because the shorter the time between harvesting and production, the higher the quality of your volatile citrus oils and the flavor for your peels and stuff. So it's important to have an efficient management, a good quality management system. So regular testing all along the process. You can do the testing alone, or you can partner with a local lab to carry out the testing, and also to standardize your products. So you can use various areas to source, to combine different tastes and aromas and mix them, so you obtain a standard product at the end. And so, yeah, the goal is to have a high value niche item and to make the difference with the cheap synthetic oils that are out there in the market, so that you can really make the difference. That's our main advice. So with this, we have said it all, and we have a few minutes left for our question and answers. I'll have a look. So we have a question from Paul Sigombe about the pests and disease problem in sub-Saharan Africa. Yes, it's a big challenge. And it's important indeed to have this phytosanitary control infrastructure in place to stay competitive on export markets, where the regulations are always more strict, and COLEAD could help you to monitor these phytosanitary regulations. We have our Agri-Info program. You can subscribe to the newsletter, and also so you will receive regular updates on changing regulations or upcoming changes. And also through our analytics page, you can check, for example, what were the number of interceptions at the EU border due to harmful organisms, which organisms cause problems with citrus exports from your country, and so on. So we have information available that might be helpful. And Arnold asks, what is the current state of threat of HLB in citrus production in Southern Africa? And yeah, what is the prevention and special treatment? We will do some research on this, and we will provide you the answer together with the slides and the recording of the webinar. It's a bit difficult to answer like that. And as far as I can see, this is it for the questions. So I would just like to conclude with the news that we will have a next webinar on the flower sector of Kenya on the 29th of October. So if you're interested in that, feel free to register. And there are always our COLEAD resources that you can find via the COLEAD website. There is the analytics page, library, e-learning, and also this study will be published soon on the e-library, so where it can be downloaded free of charge. And that's it. So thank you, and we will close the webinar.